Hi, this is Pedro Velasco with Roll-to-Roll Technologies. In a previous video, we showed you, or we talked to you about the advantages of using a retrofit kit when you need to replace your existing web guiding system, especially if you're an integrator or a rebuilder of machinery, even an end user. This is one way to save some money. So you keep the mechanical part of your web guide, but then you use our retrofit kit in order to improve its application. Now you're getting the best in controls and the best in sensors, the best technology available at that time. So whenever you order a kit from us, you will probably get a control unit, which is clearly labeled and helps you in the orientation as to how the screen will be. So you will have the sensor ports, and then you will have on the side power connection, the motor connection, and if you have ordered an Ethernet communications option, it will be there too. Right? You will also get a sensor or sensors depending on what your application, maybe even a sensor rail if you need so, but that it's up to the user as to where they want to place the sensor in. You will also get an actuator with its own motor driver, and then a servo center sensor with its brackets, right? And then all the other accessories are required in order to do the installation. Okay, so the first thing you would want to do when you receive your kit is you want to verify that it's in working condition. I mean, we do package it the best way possible, but we want to avoid any problems. So the first thing you do is you power up your control unit, and you will receive a connecting cable like this, but for the sake of this demonstration, we're just going to use a pre-connected power supply. So you will connect it to your power, right? And then the screen should light up, right? And then you can proceed to connect your sensor. Now remember, our technology allows you to do this without having to do any calibration. So it's a very simple very simple operation. So here we go. So I have now connected my sensor, and I can verify if it's working. As you can see on the screen, it's working. So that we have done that step. So after checking your the control unit with the sensor and just powering it up, we want to then proceed to installing the motor. So when you get the motor or the actuator, you will get an actuator with a mounting bracket and the motor driver. Okay, so first of all, we just want to do we're going to do a wiring here, show you how you can connect the wiring, but typically we will give it to you pre-wired. Now there are some exceptions. People have some special requirements and they want to do the wiring themselves, but we'll also give you instructions as to how to do the wiring. But in this case, we're just going to go through the whole process. So first of all, you would have to install the bracket. I'm going to use this plate that we have for the demonstration purposes, but you would have to have this already pre-drilled. It's a 4 mm screws, and then we just just put the bracket on and screw the bracket onto the plate. So one thing that you have to be cognizant of is, as we're installing the bracket, we also have to install the servo center bracket. Right? Now the servo center bracket only has one position. It goes to this side, right? So you have to install it at the same time you're installing the motor bracket. And so you use your 4 mm screws, and you have to install it within the brackets into the plate. So here I show you that I have installed the bracket, and I have installed the bracket for the motor or for the actuator, and the bracket for the servo center. Now, as you can see, I have the screws mounted here and here, right? Something you have to consider. You have to align the motor, make sure that this bracket aligns the motor with the connection for the actuator to the web guiding mechanism, right? And of course, the servo center has one position only. So, and that we're going to install in the next step. Okay, so once I have all the brackets installed, and I have aligned it, then I place the motor, and notice that I am placing the motor with the cable side on opposite of where the servo center bracket is at, right? So, and I would screw this on, and then I would get the servo center sensor. So in order to install the servo center, when it comes, it has 2 nuts, right? And so you put it through the hole on the servo center bracket, install the locking nut, and just screw it back on. And one thing that you have to do is we recommend that you have the distance between the face of the servo center sensor and the screw of the actuator. An eighth of an inch is a pretty good distance. That will work enough. And you can actually adjust that by just adjusting the back nut in order to create the space. Okay, so now that we have installed, let me give you a piece of advice. Because there are certain vibrations on the waveguides that's operating, and you don't want the servo center sensor to move. We recommend that once you have determined the appropriate distance of the servo center sensor, just put a little drop of Loctite blue on the back nut, and then after you secure the front nut, then before you secure it, just put a little bit on that too, right? And that will keep the sensor in position. Okay, so now that you have installed the motor on the motor bracket, or the actuator on the motor bracket, and the servo center on its bracket, then we want to do the wiring. However, we provide the motor driver in this enclosure. Now you have two options to place this enclosure within your operation. One is that you actually affix it to a plate or something where you can just drill a couple of holes. We provide the dimensions for this for you, so you can do that operation. You would probably recommend a M3 screw on this. However, we also provide the option where you can just put it on a DIN rail. So those are two things you can do when installing. Okay, so when we're going to wire this, it's clearly labeled. We will provide you with a sheet where it gives you the locations of each of the wires. However, typically we will send this to you pre-wired. But in the case that you need to do it on your own, we have provided this sheet, and you will find that on the P1 section, which is clearly labeled P1, you will have all the connections for the motor and the connection from the control unit to the motor. Right? And on the P5 section, you will have the connections for the servo center unit. So before we start connecting cables, let me give you a word of advice. You should not connect the motor, or plug in the connection to the control unit that goes from the motors, from the motor driver, while the control unit is on. It's not recommended. So always, every time you're going to do some operation where you need to disconnect the motor from the control unit, make sure that the control unit is off. All right, so for the sake of time, we went ahead and wired this. This took us about 5 minutes to do the wiring. But as you can see, we followed the table that we have here. It's all wired according to the table. And as I mentioned before, never plug the motor driver to the control unit while the control unit is on. So as you can see right now, we have our control unit off. We're going to go ahead and proceed and connect the motor driver to it. Now that I've connected the control unit, the motor driver to the control unit, I can proceed to put power to it. So now, one thing that we recommend once you do this is just make sure and check that everything is operating. So with the control unit on the manual, which is when it's lit red, we can actually check the position of the motor. Just move it around, right? So we can jog it to one side or jog it to the other side, right? Okay. Furthermore, we can check the servo center. Now, here's something that we want to tell you about the servo center. Sometimes, typically we will send you this already preset. But in case it has moved or something like that, you might notice that the servo center might be off. It might be because it's in the wrong position. So what you want to do is adjust it. Now, you can fine adjust it by moving the servo center in and out. Two things you don't want to do. You don't want it to be crashing against the stem of the actuator. And second thing is you don't want it to be too far away, otherwise it will just go to either one of the extremes, right? So once that is set, we are ready to then test with the sensor. Now when we're connecting the sensor to the control unit, you have to be very careful because the pins inside the connector are very, very fine. So the connector will have a notch, and you have to align the notch to the port. So the port will also have a notch in there. So align those two, and just don't push it in too hard. Just align them and just screw it right on. It will come in completely and connect correctly. Right? And as you can see right now, so the sensor doesn't detect anything, right? But right now it's in manual mode, so nothing will happen. But I'm going to check and see, and yeah, the sensor is actually seeing the finger. And if I put it on automatic, okay, it will start moving, and then I can verify the sensor, right? I servo center again, and it's ready to go. When you're speccing the motor, we actually provide you, the motor comes with an M6 thread on the end of the shaft, motor shaft. However, we usually will, we can work with you if you have another need. Now, and also we can provide you with different size motors depending on your needs. So if you have an application that requires more thrust, we can give you a bigger motor, or the standard motor that we put in some of our web guides. Or if you have a very small application, we can use a smaller motor for your. It all depends on your needs. So all you have to do is just tell us about what your needs are with the motor, and the connection to your web guide. It can be a ball joint. There's many applications you can do with this. However, anytime you need something like this, we just spec with you. We talk to you and we help you in speccing the connection for your web guide. So with all the options that we have in motors, all the options we have in controls and all that, you can apply this to any type of guide, any type of guiding application that you need. For example, you can use it on a steering guide or a displacement guide, even for unwind and rewinds. And just by changing the motor, we can use it in any of those applications. We hope this information is useful to you in how to use or how to install one of our retrofit kits. Now, one thing that we want to emphasize is this is the same technology that is on all our web guides. So if you want to see other features that we provide within our control units with our sensors, you can look at some of our other videos that we have through our website. You can see other applications we can do with our sensors. You can see how we can actually give you some other features and make your operation easier to run. So we hope this will be of help to you, and just contact us or look at our website, www.r2r-tech.com.